The government will not have to release up to 200 asylum seekers from detention whose lack of cooperation was a factor in why they can't be deported. The High Court has unanimously rejected a challenge by an Iranian refugee known by the pseudonym ASF-17. Political correspondent Olivia Casely was in the courtroom and joins me now. Hi there, Olivia. So what does this ruling mean?
Well, the full bench of the High Court has dismissed ASF-17's challenge, and you can imagine, Leigh, that the government's probably breathing a sigh of relief, given they were worried they were going to have to release up to 200 detainees from immigration detention who are also not cooperating with efforts to deport them. In some ways, today's result isn't a big surprise. Certainly, Labor sources I spoke with yesterday were quietly confident of this result. But who is ASF-17? If you take a look at this graphic here, he's an Iranian man who was essentially trying to piggyback off that landmark NZYQ ruling at the end of last year. He argues that, like that cohort, he's also got no reasonable prospect of deportation, essentially because he said that if he'd be returned to Iran, he could be persecuted. The full bench essentially found that he doesn't meet that threshold reached in that separate judgment, and he could actually cooperate with the government's efforts. So if you take a look at the judgment here, I'm going to read some of that to you now. So they've said ASF-17 is capable of providing the assistance required to remove him, and he has been found by a delegate of the minister not to have a genuine and well-founded fear of persecution in Iran. When I spoke with Labor sources yesterday, they indicated to me that they take their time to mull over today's judgment before making a statement, but perhaps in an indication that they're pleased of how this has gone today. Andrew Giles, the Immigration Minister, will be holding a press conference a little later today, and he's also released this statement in which he's talked up these concerns around community safety. He's described the win as a good result, and he says community safety continues to be our highest priority, and we will continue to take all necessary steps to keep Australians as safe as possible. As we know, the federal government did try to get ahead of a potential unfavourable challenge by getting through an amendment to the Migration Act. That failed and is now stuck in the Senate, and the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, this morning called on both the Coalition and the Greens to help the passage of that bill.
To simply allow for people who have no right to be here in Australia. These are not people who have been found to be refugees. Indeed, the opposite is the case, should not be just allowed to stay here. If you have that, then that is not appropriate. The Coalition say they support it in principle. Why have they delayed it? They'll have an opportunity to vote for it.
While it's been a good result for the government here today, the reality is that they feel that this area of immigration law is now unsettled, and in fact they're bracing for potential further High Court challenges, and they're not going to have to wait long. We learnt this week that the High Court will hear a challenge as soon as August, and that's around whether these preventative detention orders they brought in at the end of last year, that's with things like curfews and ankle monitoring bracelets, whether those powers breach the separation of the judiciary and executive. Leigh?
Thanks so much, Olivia, for that timely update, and we'll be covering this topic throughout the day.